Boom. We're ready.
2024.
Cheers, mate.
Wow. We made it.
How are you guys doing? We are doing fantastic on this fine
Friday.
Thursday. It's Thursday. It's Thursday.
Gosh.
I know. Wow. Yeah. We are currently in our retreat. We're doing a work retreat. So we did something a little different this year. We didn't start any of our goals January 1st. We plan to do that on the second week of January, or I guess next week. It just feels so much better. Like you don't have to come into the year with all of this chaos, newness, and like you have to get everything right. And this really kind of hit me at the end of last year. It was just like, why would I come into the new year after like 2 weeks of drinking, eating, watching TV, going to sleep? Distraction
stuff.
It doesn't make sense to like immediately change my behaviors and become this fabulous person by January 1st. So I'm like, I think last year I did something similar where the first week of January I didn't change a thing. I just kept going as usual, and then I let my goals become real by seeing what actually matched my reality.
You started like a month.
I think I started a month later. Like, I think I did.
But last year.
Last year. No, last year, January. Okay. I remember I just had a fabulous first week because I didn't change a thing. I just came with refreshed energy to the old stuff. Yeah. And then by the time I was doing the old stuff for a few weeks, I was like, okay, I think I'm ready I've been practicing how to do things well. I'm ready for the next, goal. So I think that was better. So anyway, we did this retreat and we are at the Nilo Hotel. We threw this on top of that because we were like, while we just like simmer into our 2024 goals, let's just take time to like get out of the house, be in a new environment, strategize on our goals, things like that. And it's really nice.
It's kind of like since we work at home, like our home and office is the same
thing.
But it's kind of like a corporate offsite, you know what I mean? But it's just us two.
Yes, it is a corporate offsite.
Yeah.
That's a perfect, and we just saw people downstairs having a corporate offsite, so it's funny.
They didn't seem happy to be here.
They didn't seem happy, and that's what we want to talk about today. Okay, honestly, I guarantee you they were creating a 5-year plan and they weren't happy about it. Yes. I guarantee you, because I've been there. Welcome back to the Get Paid to Live podcast. My name is Iffy and this is my fiance Shaw. If you're new to our podcast, welcome. We talk all things dream life and just like following your passions and your dreams. This is a space where we explore how to live first and get paid second. Whether you're an entrepreneur, you work from home.
Do you want me to do it? Because I did it earlier.
No. What was it?
Welcome to the Get Paid to Live podcast, the podcast where we get paid first and get paid to live second. I'm your host. What?
So weird. Whether you're an entrepreneur, you work for someone else, or you're just curious about creating your dream life, in these episodes, you'll find the inspiration, tips, and motivation on how you can navigate that process through our honest reflections as new entrepreneurs and our candid interviews with ambitious everyday dreamers just like you and I.
It's season 2.
It is
we
season 2.
We didn't say anything about season 2.
I know. Oh my God. Yeah. So it's season 2. So for anyone who's been watching, thank you so much for being here. I guess there's no really real way to announce seasons with the podcast unless it's like on Spotify. But for anyone watching on YouTube or other platforms, this is season 2.
What does that mean?
Season 2 is a whole new era of Get Paid to Live.
Wow.
By the way, we started this podcast filming in September of last year, and we launched at the end of October. And so it's been like, really, it only feels like 3 months of
4
like
months,
action. And
because it's been like on and off.
Yeah.
We went like a few months without, or a few weeks without filming.
Right. And we had 2 guests, so we're so happy about that. Yeah, I'm just looking forward to it. We have so many like topics that we want to cover, and we just want to like dive deeper into the mindsets that we're learning, because this is also not only just season 2, but like almost like semester 2 of our freshman year of entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
And him and I both, if you don't know the backstory, similar times we quit our jobs to really just pursue our dreams. We've always wanted to be entrepreneurs, and I think last year we were just like, we're done trying to like pretend, I guess. And
there's a lot of different factors, but ultimately both made the decision to
take the leap. I was done with corporate a few years ago, and then even a part of freelance wasn't free enough for me. And so I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't have a business idea like from the jump. It kind of just started with me doing things, and now we're here, which is
that foreshadowing?
I feel like from the summer to the winter was like our first semester. It felt like of our entrepreneurship journey.
I'm about 6 months in.
Mm-hmm.
You're a bit longer.
Yeah.
But yeah, that feels like a first semester in the bag, looking into this toward the second semester.
Honestly, even though I've been doing this since May or April, it feels like I really have only been doing it for like 5 to 6 months because for a huge chunk of that, I was still working for someone.
That's right.
As
you were like part-time for the first 6 months.
So
then the last 3 months you were full-time on your own.
Right.
So that does make sense. Like kind of 6 months.
That's why it feels similar to me. I was still kind of doing work for people and then consulting almost just my first failed business was consulting in like social media management, marketing, and it still felt like I was just having clients, and it just didn't feel entrepreneur-y enough.
You had clients, but it was kind of more niche, more specific. It wasn't like, oh, I'll do any of your social media marketing for you. It was like, no, we're specifically going to do this journey, this path,
this strategy. Yeah. And it just didn't hit for me the way I thought.
Right.
So I was like, okay, I'm ditching that. I'm going to be a creator. And the last quarter, Q4, was me just like testing out being a creator. Like, but I knew there was something deeper, like there was something more. I've always known like I wanted to have multiple businesses and just businesses focused around like what I value, like travel, luxury, just having a good time, being free, being yourself. And I didn't know what that was yet, but I was like, it has to come just through action. And I might just drop a little. I'll wait.
Yeah,
I'll wait to talk about
that. But
that.
before we get into that, like, what was your biggest takeaway? First semester's done.
Yeah.
3 months working for yourself. You're experimenting with the content. You were failing as a
person,
independent consultant.
Yeah.
What is your biggest takeaway from all that?
From the entrepreneurship arena, I think my biggest takeaway is just listen to yourself. Like, do what you want to do. Like, stop doubting that. Trust yourself, because everything I've let go of in my journey so far has been things I don't like doing. And I knew that at the start, but I didn't know it. You know what I mean? Like, I thought like I still had the supposed to's in my head. You're supposed to do this. You have to do this. Like, this is what entrepreneurs do. I kept
shaking off some preconceived notions.
Yeah. I was like, I was shedding all that. Yeah. And then that, like, not even just like in the business, but in my personal life, there was still not everything. There was a lot of things I was doing out of obligation. And I feel this year, I'm tired. Like I've exhausted myself of doing that.
Right.
And it's not like it was like a treacherous year and like there was it was like a bad year, but it's stuff that's been cooking. It's a habit that's been cooking my whole life of this have to, doing things out of obligation, doing things I don't like to. And last year I was still like, well, let me try. Let me be open because I'm new to this thing. Let me be open to networking with people. Let me be open to trying businesses that don't seem like they fit, but I don't know because I'm an entrepreneur. Like, I have to be open. Like, it's still like this idea that I don't know enough, so I can't trust my instincts. Like I have to, and to an extent, that's good because I was open to learning, but I think I figured it out. Like, I don't like some of the shit that I was doing. Like, I don't like having clients. I don't necessarily like having people to report to. I don't like people telling me what to do with my schedule. If I want to work all day, I want to work all day. If I don't want to see people all day, I don't want to see people all day. And like, to me, that's important. And I think last semester was me just like, by the end of December, I was just like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. This is the situation and I need to just embrace it. Yeah, I need to commit to it. Like, instead of trying to fight it, just commit. And this is what is inspiring my Q1 goals for sure.
I feel like it's similar for me. Like, I resonate with this idea of shedding these preconceived notions. Like, I definitely made a lot of mistakes last quarter. Had to learn a lot of lessons. Before, the idea of like someone reaching out to me to be like a co-founder kind of thing was just like such a novel concept. Like, I never would have thought that. But like, now a lot of people have reached out to me like with that pitch, with that story, and I kind of realized like it's not like this exciting thing that I thought it was.
It's actually hard.
a lot of times it just doesn't align and it doesn't work out. So like this, maybe we'll talk about this later with signal and noise, but like, you know, before that I would have thought of that as signal, like something important, something to pay attention to.
Yeah.
But now I realize that's more noise. And so I guess that's kind of one of the big takeaways from first semester, the last 6 months, is like what I thought was important, what I thought was signal turned out to be noise, and what I thought was like noise or maybe things I took for granted actually turned out to be signal, to be important.
Yeah, that's a good
so
point.
Like what was unexpected is like the traction I got with content. And before I thought, oh, I'm not going to make enough money through content to support myself, so I have to do independent consulting.
That's the prize.
Yeah, that's the main focus. But now, like, that doesn't seem to be the story. Like, I don't think I'll be making consistent income from consulting. I think it's going to be really lumpy. I think it's going to be, you know, most of the time I don't have a serious like client engagement, but like maybe once or twice a month, once or twice a year, maybe a few times a year, there's like some project. And like I'll focus on that for like a few months. Yeah. But then, you know, other than that, I'm kind of doing whatever. It's just like focusing on content creation. So like the content creation is actually like an anchor, you know what I mean? It's kind of like the main focus. Yeah. And then sometimes I'll do the consulting, where I thought maybe it would be the other way around, where it's like, no, I need to do the consulting like as the main focus to kind of earn consistent income, and then I'll do the content creation on the side. So that kind of completely reversed.
Yeah, I feel like there's like a theme for both of us from last year to this year, which is like, I feel like last year we were finding what aligned. It was like we were searching for what was aligned. And that, like, back to our episode about play, like the first step is like eliminating things. And it's kind of weird because I think we like last year we were exploring different options. And I feel like now we're at the point where we want to shed like the things that didn't work. We were like figuring out what was aligned with us by trying different things. And now we're like, our struggle or our challenge is to trust what we found that is aligned. And I think that was something last year that I didn't trust anything because I just didn't know what was better. Should I be a creator full time? Should I be a consultant full time? But I think my problem was not in the activities I was doing. It was trying to pick something to trust in rather than trusting in myself. Like I was trying to pick like, if I'm a creator now, I just do creator things. Right. But being a creator alone never felt like enough. Yeah. But then when I was trying to be a consultant, I was just like, okay, I'm a consultant now. Like that's my business. This is who I am. But it never felt 100%. Yeah. And it's just like, that's because you can't do top down. You can't just like name who you are and then it feels all right. Like you have to, we're going to talk about this in the episode, but like you have to pick what feels right to you first and let the title emerge. And I think I didn't have enough knowledge back then to trust that. Yeah. And this coming into this year, I feel like if I like dressing up and going to coffee shops, God knows what kind of job that is, right? But that's the signal. Instead of, I used to think that was like you were saying, like noise, like, oh, that's just something I like to do. Like, no, that is the moment. And keep doing that, keep following that, because you never know what's going to come afterwards. Or I knew I loved making content. Keep following that. I know that I don't like having calls all day. Don't follow that. And it's like just being able to finally trust it and now start prioritizing my life around that, because it sounds silly that now it's not the fact that I'm so busy and I can't talk or like hang out. It's the fact that like maybe I don't want to. Yeah. Like I just don't want to. That's enough. And I couldn't trust that last year. This year I can be like, yeah, if I don't want to hang, I don't want to hang. It no longer matters about my free time. It's just, do I feel energetically aligned to this hangout? Yes or no? Yeah. Is it a hell yes or is it a hell no? So it's like, I feel this year we're becoming more trusting in what we like, which I feel like is only going to lead to better things in a life that is now going to start creating the life that we actually want. And I think that's a step people don't talk about. Like they don't talk about how silly it feels to like basically do what we're doing, like be investing in things just because it's fun, right? Like investing with money into things just because it's fun, or investing time wise into things when you're not getting any income, like for a long period of time. Like but it feels right. So I'm doing it. And I trust that because I don't know what's going to happen, but I know that I trust the feeling that it gives me. And I trust that will come time and time again. So it's like following that feeling. And that's very underrated.
Yeah. Anyway. I mean, that's all we're doing right now.
Yeah, just literally.
Like, we're just doing what feels right.
Yeah.
Pulling on that thread. We don't really know where this is taking us.
Yeah.
But on some level, just trusting that this is the right path.
Yeah.
You know? And we'll see what happens. This is an experiment.
Yeah. Like I said, we're the guinea pigs. Y'all can watch. Okay. So anyway, let's talk about today's episode, which a lot of things we've mentioned already are huge themes into this episode. But I want to talk about something that I think is really relevant in this time of year. Everybody's trying to follow their plan. Everybody is trying to make a plan. New Year's resolutions. How are we going to get to the goal?
The gym was packed this morning.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Downstairs?
No, it was a lifetime.
Oh, okay. I was like, what? Why are people working out at the hotel? And I want to bring up a concept that we kind of created. 5-year plan mentality. It's this weird corporate-ish vibe that I feel like even if you're not in corporate or you've never heard of it, you have aspects of it. We've all been spoon-fed this like 5-year plan mentality. It's like pick a destination, make this elaborate verbose plan about how you're going to get there, and then let me just have this in my back pocket so at least if somebody asks me whether I'm doing it or not, this is my 5-year plan.
I think it's grounded in the delusion that life is predictable,
right?
And it's not. You can't predict what's going to happen next month, next week, even tomorrow to some extent, let alone in 5 years,
right?
And 5 years ago, 2018, like what were you doing?
God.
5 years ago, could you have predicted anything that is happening?
Not a chance.
Day to day.
2018, that was like my first full year or like my first time in a corporate environment. Cool. And that was my first year into corporate for sure. Let me tell you, I remember it clear as day. I thought corporate was the best thing in the world. And if you watch my videos, you probably laugh at that statement. I thought it was the best thing in the world, like genuinely. And I thought this is where I'm going to make my mark. I truly thought that. I was so happy. I remember my mom and my sister laughed at me when I was just like, guys, I get 30 days of PTO. And I'm like, they're so nice. They're so kind to me. And they were laughing at me because they were just like, yeah, but it's not it's just this one-way exchange. Right. You're doing a lot of work for them. I'm like, but I know this is where I'm at. I just like it though. And I just thought it was almost like college again for me in a new way. I was like, I'm going to make my mark here. I'm going to do everything. My impact is going to be here in the world. And I can be really good at this. And I'm happy I get to go on vacation. Mm-hmm. And my priorities were figuring out how to hack the corporate system, hanging out with my friends, going on vacation as much as possible, and going to events and having a cute apartment. That was my sphere of influence. And I would have never planned for my life today. First of all, I wouldn't like it. It's not even that I wouldn't like it. I wouldn't resonate with it. If somebody told me 5 years ago, that girl, that I'm going to be a podcaster, I travel when I want, my whole day is just me writing, taking pictures, editing videos, I'd be like, it's not even that I wouldn't like it because I'd be like, wow, that's amazing. But I'd be like, there's no way that that's possible. There's no way that I can do that all day.
There was no path.
No, I would have no idea how to get there. And even if someone told me no, this is true, so you have to get started, I'd be like, well, I don't know how. I don't even know how. I have this job. It wouldn't make any sense to me. And I wouldn't have even planned for this outcome. Right. I would have planned for 5 years. Okay, how can I be VP of this department? That would have been my goal. Yeah. And now, today, that sounds horrendous. So it's honestly, 5-year plans are just irrelevant.
Right.
So what would you have planned for grad school, Shahin?
I really don't know. I was doing programming and stuff, but I hadn't done any kind of machine learning, AI kind of stuff, which is basically
what you do now.
Yeah, most of what I'm up to these days.
Yeah.
The reason I went back to grad school was learn more about how the world works.
Yeah.
And most of my days, most of what I do now is learning, but kind of more specific in like the kind of machine learning AI world now. And also like consulting, like how to be a better consultant. I don't know. I feel like there's definitely similarities.
Yeah.
But there's things that I would never have
even thought of. And I think that's the thing, like when you don't have knowledge about things, you don't even know what to project.
Yeah. Unknown unknowns.
Yeah. Like how would you even know what to project that far in advance when you're like so far away from it? I wrote this down because I thought of it in two ways. One, like the 5-year plan, back in corporate, I love planning. So I was just like, oh yeah, another thing to plan.
Yeah.
But it never really like fit. Like it never really made a whole lot of sense to me. So there's one of two things. There's something you want to do and you're finding a 5-year reason to procrastinate on it.
Okay. Right.
Like, because
you have a clear idea of how to get the thing,
right?
But you're just procrastinating.
You're procrastinating for 5 years for no reason.
Yeah.
Or you don't want it. Like it's something that you think you want, but deep down you know you don't actually want it, and you're trying to avoid what you actually want by creating this elaborate 5-year plan for something that you don't want because it's easier, it's predictable. Because usually what we do want is very hard to define. And it's very hard to go after because we don't know. We've never done it before. And why I say that is because everybody's desires are unique. So whatever you want and whatever you see for your life is completely unique. Even if it's like, oh, I want to be a musician, there's musicians out there. But your version or your style or how it's ideal to you is going to be very unique. So given that your dreams and your desires are like unique to you, you've never seen it before. So that's why it's really hard to go after what you want, which is why we created a podcast like this, because it was like, we need examples of people doing it. So people are like, okay, how can I take action in my own version of it, right? So usually 5-year plans are a really good way for you to be like, I have a feeling it's in this direction, but I have no idea what that looks like. So let me just create this 5-year plan of like some templated plan of what people do when they want X, even though I don't want X, it's close enough. And I think that's what a lot of people do. They pick one of the two options and it's like, both are a bad idea.
Yeah, I feel like 5-year plans just don't make a whole lot of sense for individuals. Like it makes sense for a large company because they're big, and 5 years because the pace of progress and change for a large company is a lot slower than for an individual. Yeah. Like if, a company that's been in existence for 50 years wants to make a change, it's going to take years to really make that change, for that message to really trickle through the entire organization. Right. But for an individual to change, it just takes a moment. You know what I mean? So the time scale 5 years is so huge for an individual, but is not that huge for a company. So like this 5-year plan exercise, like while it might make sense for a large enterprise, it's suboptimal. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense for individuals. You know what I mean? Right. And I think that makes sense. I think that's why it never really made sense for you, because it doesn't make sense for individuals. Because a lot of times you're also doing 5-year plans in the setting of a large corporation, which is not the real world. Right. Which is not the real world. And it kind of makes sense there because you can't, as an individual contributor in a corporation, you can't make all the change by yourself. You have to work with the departments and your team to make it happen. So it just naturally slows down the pace of how you can make that change. So it does kind of make sense in that way. Like, okay, I'm going to watch this training video because I looked it up because it's been a while. And literally I was looking up like 5-year plans, like how it looks like, what people do in a 5-year plan typically. And it was just like, I'm going to take this course. And then after I watch this training video, I'm going to like meet with this person. Right. It's very like step by step by step. It kind of goes back to what I said at the top. It's the illusion that the world is predictable. Yeah. You know what I mean? Typically predictability, we were talking about this earlier, typically predictability only comes from experience, from been there, done that. Like if you were to kind of lose everything, you'd be able to get another corporate job. You'd be able to get freelance clients. I would be able to get another job. I would be able to start a YouTube channel. I'd be able to start a community. Like these things that we've been there, done that. Like, we can do it again. It's predictable because of our experience. Right. But anything worth pursuing, anything worth putting at the end of your 5-year plan is not something you've done before.
Yeah.
That's why you're aspiring to spend 5 years of your life pursuing that goal. Right. And anything like that, you lack that experience. So you have no idea
what that step would look like.
There is no predictability. Right. You don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
Which is why, like, 5-year plans kind of on paper, they make sense if you know exactly how to do it.
Right.
But like nothing that you know exactly what steps to take is worth pursuing for 5 years. Yeah.
Right. It's like, why would okay. So 5-year plans are things that you don't know how to achieve probably because it's going to be taking that long. Like for me, I don't know how to make $1 million. Right. Okay. That would probably be eligible for a 5-year plan. Right. But I've never made $1 million. So how would I even know what comes in this year versus that year and which, like I could do research, I could study, but your experience is never going to be exactly what someone else's, right? So I wouldn't have the most informed decision-making on what I do during that 5-year plan. Versus if somebody told me to start a YouTube channel, I could give someone a 5-year plan, but I'd be like, that's ridiculous. You can do that in like a week or a day. Right. And so I would have so much more information to fill even in that week plan. Right. And I think 5-year plans can work in the setting of corporate for the individual because like
the world is more predictable.
It's fixed. It's in the corporation, and like corporations are little worlds. Like if you've worked there, you know, like, oh, there's like this famous person and that famous person in the company, but that's not real. Like I always said this, like when I quit, like my VP or like the CFO of my company who's so famous in my company, if they go to Korean barbecue, I wouldn't know who they are. Like I would just be like, that's a normal person. But in his own world, he's this famous person, right? And it's like it makes sense in those environments because it is fixed. It's more predictable. Like everybody acts a certain way, everybody does certain things, and this person's probably going to be doing this job next year, which means you can probably talk to them at this time. And like it makes more sense. But in the real world, when you're pursuing a dream life you've never done before, this $1 million goal, right? Like I don't have a choice but to narrow that down because it won't make sense. It's not real. Another thing with that is that I know why people do it. It gives you this very comforting feeling. Sure. You know, plans just make you feel better. It makes you feel like I can control things.
Sense of predictability.
Exactly. And I did the same thing when I entered corporate, like my last semester, or not corporate, sorry. When I entered this like entrepreneurship world, I had a plan. I didn't do 5-year plan because I knew that wasn't going to help, but I kind of did this like, we kind of talk about this because when we were both starting to think about my consulting business, which is called IOA Studios, I was very much a planner. I like even have a TikTok video of me talking about like how I'm going to make this money and like work backwards. We
should link that in the description.
We should. It's embarrassing looking back now, but it's like I had an idea of what packages I was going to have that was going to make me this amount of money because I had like decided how much money I wanted to make by the end of the month. Like each month, which is cute. It's a cute exercise, but I don't know how to make that money. So it doesn't matter what I say is my plan for making the money. I've never done that before. And so I had this cute exercise of how I'm going to do it. And it made sense. People still like that video and comment. They're like, oh my God, this is helpful. I'm like, no, it's not.
It makes sense, but it doesn't work.
It doesn't work, right? And that's the point. Like things can make sense on paper, but they don't work. Like that's a relationship.
That's a 5-year plan in a nutshell. Yeah. It makes sense, but it doesn't work.
It doesn't work. It's just like trying to say like, I want my dream guy on paper and you can have that dream guy and you guys are not compatible. It's the same concept. And I think I wrote down this plan and we always laugh about how like I came in with such strong, like this, it was much more of a planning and executing when I didn't have much time to play and explore and like figure out what I was trying to do. I came in with a very strong, like, this is what I'm going to do, how I'm going to do it. Let's get started. And it didn't work. It didn't work because first of all, I was completely misaligned from the prompt or the objective. I wanted to be this consultant and make money because I could make a lot of money and it's something I knew how to do, but it's not something I like to do. Yeah. So it doesn't matter what kind of elaborate plan I have. It wasn't for me in the first place, which is another thing I want to talk about. Like when you're starting this plan, it has to be something that you enjoy. Yeah. So it doesn't matter what kind of amazing 10, 5, 70-year plan you create for yourself. If you don't like the goal, it doesn't matter. What's the point? You know? But I do want to bring up like accepting that lack of control is it's a lot easier and it's so much more effective. That's really counterintuitive, but people like the 5-year plan because it makes sense. It's comforting. It helps them eliminate uncertainty in their life. They're like, oh, I can leave it up to the plan. I don't have to do anything. I have comfort in this. It's the same thing with corporate, to be honest. Like they're taking care of my health insurance. They're taking care of everything. I don't have to worry about it. Right? But it's not real. So you have to come to terms with like, you are choosing to buy into a delusion. Right. So with the notion that nothing is for certain, that there's always uncertainty, you're just either choosing to look at it or not. What you're giving up with that certainty is like the action. Like you're giving that up because you're trying to say like, this is in my certain plan. So there's really nothing I can do else other than that. Like
it's like a trade-off between certainty and accuracy.
You
know, because the world is uncertain. It is unpredictable. You know what I mean? And the further away you go in time, in space, whatever, the less certain you are of what that actually looks like. You know what I mean? I have a clearer picture of what tomorrow might look like versus next week. And next week is clearer than next month. And next month is clearer than next year. You know what I mean? And a 5-year plan, it does give you this feeling of certainty, but the plan is inaccurate. You know what I mean? And so you kind of choose your trade-off, like how much accuracy do I want versus how much certainty, because we do need certainty. We need to have that feeling that, you know, we have some sort of influence and control and things are going to work out, and
or you're not going to be
okay, or you're not going to have the motivation to go after it.
You're going to feel so sad.
So certainty is important, but if you kind of you give up all the accuracy to be confident, to be completely delusional, you know what I mean? It may not serve you in the real world. Like when you start operating with faulty assumptions, with false preconceived notions, you're going to be less effective. So it's about finding that right balance.
And I think that's what happened with me in my consulting business. I was so worried about sticking to this plan that I wasn't listening to the signs around me, because I'm like, oh, this is not my 5-year plan, but this is my plan. And this is what I'm supposed to do. This is what I have to do to get to this goal. But it didn't matter because it still wasn't accurate. So that's why I was like, why am I not getting there? I don't know, because it doesn't fit. It's not real. And I think when you let go of this like desperate need or like overcompensation for certainty, I think you're able to like actually learn, which is what you need to achieve the goal. You actually need to like have knowledge, and you also need to take action. So like the knowledge and the action usually leads to the success, because when you're doing, you don't just want to do out of like no direction, right? But that's why you combine it with the learnings. But you have to be open to learn. Like you can't be in this like this completely fixed world.
When you're certain about everything, there's no room for learning.
Exactly.
There's nothing to learn
because it's like, oh, I just do this tomorrow. But that's why goals and plans and all this is not a bad thing. It just means that it needs to be informed by something that's real, or you're never going to get to the goal.
And it's kind of like the Jeff Bezos quote that we might talk about later. But it's like, you're stubborn on your vision, like the ultimate objective, you know, whatever that looks like, but you're flexible on the details. You're flexible on how you're actually going to get there.
Right. And I think, exactly. And I think people have it flipped. They're like
stubborn on the details, but flexible on the outcome.
And that's not what you want to be, because your vision is the goal. So when I talk about goal, like the dream life, the vision, that's the goal. The goal is not take 3 courses on, you know, engineering. Like that's not the goal. That's just like how you'll do it, right? And I think people get very fixed on how to do the thing when you don't know how yet, because you still lack the knowledge. So when you're holding on to certainty, you're preventing yourself from taking action. You're preventing yourself from taking informed action at that. And then that leads to you not getting to that goal or your real goal. And it's just like, because you can't ignore the fact that if you aren't aligned with something, you can't truly be successful at it. And success is subjective. And that's why I say that, like, whatever success means to you is what it means to you. I can't I can't define it. Only you can. But you know when something feels successful to you or not. Like you can get the car, you can get the career, the title, the degree, and still feel nothing. Right. And that means that that's not your version of success. So that kind of leads to like, how do you operate knowing that you can't control shit? Yeah. And it's difficult to find out the thing that you actually want to, achieve or pursue. I think we've created a new kind of like I would say metaphor. Yeah. Something called the 5-step plan.
No. That's incorrect.
We were reviewing our notes and I could not get it right. It's the 5-foot plan. Sorry.
Yeah. And I think it was just some just like whatever thing you were telling me about 5-year plans, and I was like, people don't need 5-year plans, they need 5-foot plans.
5 foot.
Because this kind of goes back to what we were talking about with like certainty and accuracy. Like 5 years in the future is as too uncertain much as it gets, and whatever your guess is going to be inaccurate. Yeah. You know what I mean? But 5 feet in front of you is very clear. Yeah. Like just looking around, you can see with really good detail. Like
things are clear.
Yeah, things are clear 5 feet around you. And so that's kind of like the scope that like we're thinking in. You know what I mean? We're not worrying about what's going to happen next year. Yeah. We're just focused on the next step.
What's right in front of us? What is obvious? What is clear to me? Yeah. If it's not clear, if it's not obvious, if it's not around me, it's not my place to worry about it. Honestly, it's kind of like out of sight.
Other things to focus on.
Right, out of sight, out of mind. And normalize having visions that you don't, like these 5-year plans, which I can equate to like your dream life, your dream vision, whatever. Normalize not knowing how to get there yet. Yeah. I don't think it's for this version of you to figure out because you don't have enough information.
Yeah, I mean, and if you knew exactly how to do it, you would probably already be there.
Yeah. It'd be done. It wouldn't be hard for you. Like brushing your teeth is not something you have to make a 5-year plan about. You know how to do it. And I think that's what's silly in retrospect. If you saw someone trying to make a plan about like how to tie their shoes, you'd be like, why would you ever do that? You know, and that's probably how people who have the thing that you want are looking. Right. Like,
I mean, like people reaching out to me like, oh, how do you get a job in like a data science job? And it's like, it's kind of so boring because it's like been there, done like, that. Oh, that's easy. Kind of what's the next thing? Like I'm now thinking about, how do you build a team? Like how do you get cash flow positive in business?
I hate that.
How do you make $1 million business? You know what I mean? Those are things that are interesting to me, but talk to someone that's ahead of me, they're like, $1 million, that's boring. Like I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about how to get to 10 million or how to get to 100 million or how to get to 1 billion. Yeah. And so it's all these like different levels, and like once you kind of hit that checkpoint, once you beat that level in the game, like it's kind of boring to kind of play that level again. You know?
And I don't think the people who achieved what you're trying to achieve in your 5-year plan, I don't think that they achieved it by creating a 5-year plan 5 years prior to them getting there. They just had to do stuff. They had to like do it. There's no other way around it. A lot of the questions that like I get or you get for people who I guess like are learning to get where we are and that we're learning to get where other people are, the answer is always some variation of do it. Like it's always some type of different font of do it.
Because the
only just get started.
And this is what we were talking about earlier. Like the only thing between you and your goal is knowledge. You know what I mean? You just lack the knowledge.
Yes.
That is kind of required to make that thing obvious.
Yeah. And how do you get knowledge? You have to take action.
Yeah.
That's how you
knowledge comes from experience. Yeah. So you have to kind of be doing things to gain experience, to gain the knowledge.
Exactly. So I thought about it in like 2 steps. Or like how you can shift from this 5-year plan mentality to a 5-foot plan. So one, I think at the origin, you have to understand and get very clear and accurate on your desire. Because like we were saying earlier, there's no point in you creating a plan about anything if you don't want it. Like if you don't want the outcome or the goal or won't make you feel the way you want to feel, there's no point in pursuing it. Dream life is really heavily rooted on your, like, you, authentic, specific, because it has to be something you like, or it's not your dream life, it's someone else's, right? And so you need to understand what you actually want. And then after you understand what you want, you need to take the quick and obvious action, not 5-year action, like obvious action, because you're trying obvious next step. This is you. This is your future self. You're trying to close that gap, okay, to where you are your future self. That's kind of like the whole point. And you can't become your future self by delaying what your future self does, you know? Yeah. So let's start with number one, like really understanding what you want, like getting clear on that and getting accurate on that. And there's nothing more accurate than looking right in front of you. Like it's real, you know? And so
what do you already do?
What are you already doing? And it's like, you don't have to guess, like, oh, let me think of some new hobby that I would like. No, it's look at the data, like look at what you already do instead of trying to find new, like, do not look up like new hobbies in 2024.
Millionaire hobbies in 2024.
Don't look, because you're guaranteed to get what other people consider a dream life, not you. And so that's why it's good to look at what you like. If you're so lost on this, you can always just take things day by day. Like go throughout your day today or tomorrow. What is always a hell yes for you? Like you're excited when you think about it. You're excited when you do it. You feel good even if it's something like working out, where like maybe you're not excited in the beginning, but afterwards you're like, this is good. Like I'm just there. Without a doubt, this is a good activity in my life. And then there's things that will feel the complete opposite. Like either you go to even if it's a college class, like you go to one of your classes and you're like, this subject makes me want to die, like, or talking to this person drains me, or going to this party feels like hell, like my body is in hives, like just being around this thing. Those are your hell no's. So if you look at your hell yeses and hell no's, you can kind of think about it like, if I'm doing my hell yeses, I'm moving closer to the things that make me feel good, and when I'm doing my hell no's, I'm moving either away from the things that make me feel good, or I'm moving closer to things that don't make me feel good. And who would do that? So it becomes very clear what you like and what you don't like. So start noticing that throughout your life. And one thing here is, when you're looking at the data, don't skip over things. Like don't like sleep on the frivolous, silly little things. It doesn't have to be hobbies or these titles or professional activities,
or what people typically think of as like productive.
Exactly. It can be literally anything. Everything is a clue. Even if you're not a professional baker and you like baking, it's a clue. I'm not saying it's the thing or the profession. Again, we're not labeling anything. Exactly. We're not labeling anything yet. It's a piece of the puzzle. So it can be the feeling while you're baking that gives you a clue or a sign. It's not a coincidence. These things are not a coincidence. Like a lot of times, like people will be like, well, I mean, what am I going to do? Like start sewing clothes? They immediately start from the activity and jump to a job. That's not what we're doing here. It's just identifying what makes you feel good, because sometimes it's when you combine it, like somebody who is sewing, someone who likes sewing, someone who likes baking. They also like making like arts and crafts. If you put that all in a category, it sounds very similar, right? Like maybe they like doing things with their hands. Who knows? That could be like someone who teaches people eventually, like someone who teaches people how to do that, or someone who does it for themselves, or like whatever. And in isolation, these things don't always mean a job right away. Like for me, I used to think like, I like graphic design. Like I like watching it. I like doing it a little bit. I'm not like a Adobe pro, but I like it. And it wasn't at the time for me to understand what that meant. I just had to take note of it. Like now it's like, it was something I liked, but I wouldn't do it all day. It's not like my full-time job, but it was something I liked enough. But now I see how it fits into the bigger picture. I need design to do what I want to do. Like being a, YouTuber or creator, I need to know how to design my own things. I can't wait on people. I have a very specific vision. And now I see how it fits into the bigger picture. But I should have all I had to do then is just keep doing it. Like I didn't have to know what it meant.
And an example, like from my kind of journey, like in college, we were event planners. So that seems completely unrelated to anything that I would ever do.
Right.
But so I was planning these events. Well, I guess it could be related to music, and I guess that was my entry point into it. But anyway, I was an event planner. And then later I kind of got into data science and machine learning and like these technical types of things. And I've kind of always enjoyed like social interactions, like kind of talking to people, having interesting conversations, kind of just joking around and being goofy. I mean, all these things could seem like unrelated, but now in the data entrepreneurs, the community that I'm running, all these things are coming together. You know, the technical stuff with the social side and the event planning, you know, they're coming together to make the data entrepreneurs. And, you know, before starting the community, there was really no, you know, like when I was an event planner in college, there was no way I would have predicted in 8 years or however far into the future, I would start this community and use these skills again. You know what I mean? But the community is like something that provides me value because like the whole motivation there was like, I couldn't find any mentors. I couldn't find any like-minded people to talk to that were on a similar journey as me. But then I was able to bring together all these experiences and skills in a unique way to create something new. To do that. And that something is fully aligned with, you know, what I want and what I can do. You know?
And at the time, 8 years ago, event planning, in a way, there was something about it that felt good to you. So you just kept doing it. And that allowed you to get to the skill level that you got to, which is necessary for the step now when creating the data entrepreneur. So like, I just think like those are like, life gives you clues and we don't all have the same clues. That's the fun part about it. You know, like everybody has different things, and it comes, if you keep doing the things that you like doing, they will come together eventually. So like another thing I want to talk about here is like the misconceptions that you have about what you like and what you don't like, because you have the wrong instincts, you know? Like I feel like when you don't, like we're saying, when you don't have the knowledge, you don't know what action to take because you just
don't have the experience.
You don't have the experience. You don't know yet, right? So like it's kind of like, oh yeah, just get started, just do stuff. But when you have some kind of like preconceived idea of what you're supposed to do, you start looking towards the wrong like actions. Like you start sleeping on things that you should be paying attention to, and you're going after things that you shouldn't be. That's noise. That's not for you.
Kind of like me with the content and consulting. Like I had this preconceived notion that consulting was going to be my main focus and then content was the side thing, but it's completely reversed.
What's the difference between the signal and noise, just so we have it like defined?
So signal is the thing that you care about. And noise is everything else.
And I think when those two things are subjective to whoever you're talking to. So if I think that I'm supposed to be some like corporate baddie, I'm going to perceive things as signals that are related to corporate because I think that that's where I'm supposed to be. And then I'm going to perceive everything else, like, I don't know, art class and, you know, hanging out with friends or like whatever, like other things as noise. I'm going to be, oh, that's a distraction because I have somewhere I need to be. So I think there's like a part to this step of like, I would say almost like play and not sleeping, not sleeping on frivolous things. Like there's a part of this to where you have to be like, I don't know anything yet. So I'm starting from scratch. Like I can't assume that I know what's best.
Yeah, so I was going to say, like, you know, to what you're saying, like, signal is subjective. Like, what is signal? What is noise? And your current perspective is based on your current experiences, your current knowledge, your current world that you're in. So it's going to be biased. And so just like me 6 months ago, like, what was signal is different than what is signal for me now. You know, so this is something that's constantly evolving. So I guess the point is, like, you can't trust what seems like signal now and what seems like noise now. Things that are noise might actually be signal for where you want to be, and things that are signal that might seem like signals now are actually just noise. They're things that, you know, are really distractions. In entrepreneurship, it's easy to kind of try to chase a million different monetization strategies. So for me, you know, people reaching out to me like, oh, I want you to be a co-founder. I was like, oh, I want to, like, do you want to do a course? You want to do an ebook? Like, these are all, like, they might sound like signal from a certain perspective. Like, before I became a content creator and kind of got into this, you know, doing an ebook sound like a way to monetize. Doing a course sounded like a way to monetize. Yeah. It made sense. But then it kind of goes back to what we were saying, is like, it can make sense but not work. You know what I mean?
Right.
What could have seemed to be signal like a year ago, like doing a course or something like that.
Yeah, to be like, oh, I'm getting so much closer to the goal.
Right.
You know?
Like that. Like today, that feels more like noise to me than actual signal. Yeah. And what kind of seemed boring like a year ago, like just make more
making
videos,
the content. I already know how to do that. You know what I mean?
It's not really exciting, but that's the signal. Like that's the thing that's been working. Yeah. So keep doing that thing. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And I think we sleep on those things because we think, oh, it's easy, it's simple, it's frivolous. People do, like, there's like some things that my friends will tell me, they're like, oh yeah, I just do this on the side, and it's like some cool activity I've never heard of, or like I don't do, like, I mean, I know like drawing is pretty common, but like how they draw, or like what they make art about, or what they like one of our friends recently told us she's starting a poetry book. And it's like, I've never done that, you know, like it's a cool thing. And like those are the things, when you look at the overnight success and like how they blew up, they just randomly started a poetry book. And it's like, that's the kind of stuff you never know what it's going to be. And you shouldn't have an idea. Like, you don't want to start the project with a outcome in mind. You kind of want to do it because you like it, because you're trying to learn, you're trying to be curious, right? You're trying to just understand it. And you never know what it could be. That's just something that you should keep in mind. Or maybe it's combining that activity with something else, and it's an ingredient in a bigger picture. Like, but the point is, you don't have the knowledge to know what's good or bad. You kind of have to start at this neutral, you know, playing ground.
Just be open-minded.
Be open-minded and observe what's around you, so that you can make an informed decision later. You just don't know when that's going to be. But it could be those silly little things. So don't put off play and exploration. We have an episode about play and how to do it too. It's very similar.
Well, what this all reminds me of is how I started doing content creation, because I was getting my PhD and like making YouTube videos, like writing articles and posting it on, like writing blogs and posting it online. Like that just sounds like a distraction. That sounds like noise. You know what I mean? But that is the thing that has been the most, that's the most signal that I've received kind of in my journey. So, and the reason I did that is because I like it. I like learning, and I like creating a coherent narrative and explanation of the things that I learn. You know what I mean? Because, you know, the transition from something being confusing and scary to becoming clear and comfortable, like, that is a really satisfying feeling. Like that's what it means to learn for me. And so like making content like allows me to do that full circle. You know what I mean? I like giving talks. I don't know why. It's just fun to make the slides and to kind of be up there talking and get questions, and then, you know, afterwards go to a bar or something and keep talking with people.
What a signal you got.
I know. But I like stuff like that. And 3 years ago, I would never have predicted that I would be approaching 10,000 subscribers on YouTube. I know. I wouldn't have even like there was no path toward that. You know what I mean?
You're like 4K on Medium now too.
Like 5K
on Medium.
So like I would never have predicted that I have like more than 10,000 people following my content.
Just like from this silly little thing. Right? Like it's just.
And so that's the kind of thing. The thing that could have been perceived as noise could have been perceived as a distraction when I'm pursuing my PhD turned out to be the main thing. And another thing that could have been seen to be a distraction during my PhD is when I started freelancing, because I started picking up some contracts on the side. But that's kind of allowed me to get a head start on my consulting business. So instead of now I'm starting from scratch, I have like a 6-month, 12-month head start of like consulting. You know what I mean?
So another like practical example of this, other than from our experience, I had a friend who was also on this podcast, episode 4, I believe, where we were talking about just like expectation versus reality. And she was saying how a long time ago, as somebody who like dreamed of corporate and thought she was going to be this serious like boss babe, whatever. She went to a university when she was touring universities, and she went to this like art school. The kids were like, quirky and weird and wearing colorful stuff and everything, and she just was like writing it off. She was like, hell no, this is not for me. And she's like, I can't believe people are just sitting around like wasting time, when they have there's things to be done, and so checklists. It's funny because in the episode, if you listen to it, she has come to a conclusion now where she's just like, I'm actually that person. Like, I'm actually the artsy person. It was in her. And at the time,
she lacked the perspective
and the knowledge. Exactly. She thought that was noise when really that was the signal that she needed to kind of be where she's at today. But she learned it, in other ways. It's just, you just can't always trust the perspective that you have, because it's usually crafted by a lot of other people that aren't you. And
she's lucky that she was able to finally see it, because some people, they get so wrapped up in the story, in the narrative,
and the 5-year plan,
in the 5-year plan, and the certainty that they kind of push away and avoid what they're supposed to be doing, like what's authentic to them. So it's kind of lucky that maybe she didn't get it the first time, but she got it now instead of like another 5 years or another 10 years or another 20 years. You know what I mean? People like, not to name names, but like I've talked to people that they feel like they didn't really grow up until they turn like 40 or 50. You know what I mean? They're halfway through their life, and that's when they finally grew up. You know what I mean? They finally started living.
Honestly, the first step is really to just start from scratch again. Just play. Don't sleep on anything that sounds silly or frivolous. You don't know what's silly. You can't define anything yet. You just need to be open-minded and look around so that you can actually attract what you are actually like naturally aligned to, instead of what you're telling yourself you should be aligned to.
So, and it's not that your perspective is completely unreliable. It's just imperfect.
Exactly.
And so it's just always remembering that, like, not taking things too seriously, not being so confident of like what's signal versus what's noise, like being so sure of what's a waste of time versus not a waste of time. And it's really a statement of ignorance. Like you just lack the knowledge to be able to make a good determination of what is truly signal and what is truly noise.
Exactly. And I think how you can tell, and it's not even something versus like opinion or up for debate. I mean, whatever you know has gotten you this far. And if you're not happy with what you see, there's something you don't know, which means you have to go back to the drawing board, literally, because everything you know is only gotten you here, and you don't want this. Like, there's something about this that you don't want. So you have to trust that there's something you're missing. And how do you figure out what's missing? You have to go back. You have to go backwards. Like, if you lost an earring, you trace your steps. Where did you lose it? You can't write things off anymore. You can't afford to if you want to get closer to your dream life. And honestly, I think there is a beauty in randomness, and I think people sleep on that. Like, randomness is not a waste of time. It's not just for the rich or for people who have time and everything. It's actually more necessary for people like who puttering around. We were watching this, or I was watching this. No, I think I was watching it.
Jeff Bezos was.
I saw a TikTok.
Oh, you did see a TikTok, but that was part of a Lex Fridman podcast interview.
Oh, so
I watched the podcast.
Okay. So Jeff Bezos was talking to Lex Fridman, and he was saying what his morning routine is, and he was just saying how he putters around, and I just thought that was a funny word, first of all, and second, like it goes to show what the rich and successful are actually doing, and I think I always had this like very serious like dungeon mentality of like people who are rich and successful, they're just doing hard things all day. They're doing things people don't want to do, when in reality they're doing things that everybody wishes they could do,
or they're just doing what they want to do.
They're doing what they want to do. And I honestly feel like that's the secret. Like, I really feel like the secret to this successful, happy, abundant life, it doesn't even have to be just money or businesses. It's just like whatever is like rich and abundant to you is doing what you want to do first before you have a reason to do it. Like literally, it's so familiar to us that we're like, oh, this, like, why would this make me like successful? And you just don't know. So like,
you gotta trust.
You gotta trust it.
You gotta trust the process.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. When you give things meaning, it provides the meaning back to you, and it gives you more meaning for the thing you already put in. So that's what's good about it. It's like a healthy exchange where you get more out of it. So second step is to take baby steps. Right. So the second part of this is take action. Like when you start to become informed on what you actually like, take the next obvious step. You said this, you've been saying this a lot lately, but I like it. There's so much wisdom in doing.
Yes.
And that's another thing we sleep on.
Yeah. I think the whole thing with doing is that, I mean, you can learn things from a textbook. Yeah. But that type of knowledge always has gaps in it. Yeah. And the only way to fill those gaps in is by doing. Yeah. And that's why, this is kind of the theme of, I guess, this episode. It's like there's a certain type of knowledge that comes from experience, like the been there, done that. Yeah. Like, and what that provides you is a confidence. Like if I lost everything, I'd be able to do it again, no problem. Like it's not that you just have the knowledge, but you also have this unshakable confidence with the knowledge that you just can't get from a textbook. And if you do, it's usually pretty fragile because like you have someone who's like quote unquote book smart.
You test it.
They're thrown into the real world. They start to collapse. Yeah. Like kind of book smart is great for classroom. They'll excel in the classroom, but they won't necessarily excel in the real world. However, knowledge obtained from the real world will excel in the real world, even if it may not excel in the classroom. So it's just two different types of knowledge.
It's almost like going into your, like, to me, I think the instinct that will always lead you to the right direction is your intuition. Like, I think you should look to that because instincts are learned, but like intuition is just like innate. It's just like there. And I feel like this could be woo woo, so take it as you will, but I feel like that it never misses. Like it never misses. It's just about the skill of listening to it or not, like how good you are at listening to it or understanding what it's trying to tell you. But those are not things that are learned from society. It's just stuff that's always been there. And I think when you follow that, like
trust your gut,
put it in a different way, like that hardly gets you somewhere completely south of where you wanted to go. And I feel like when you're doing, you just have so much more like you're not worried about all of the other options because you're occupied, you're busy. Right. And then when you do something day in, day out, there's nothing you need to artificially create. There's no plans and like you're in it. Like you don't even have time for that. Right. Like you're just, things become so much more clear because it's just the next step. It's like if somebody who works at a hot dog stand, if they're trying to figure out how to make $10 more the next day, and they've been doing this for a whole month, they're probably going to be like, let me just try different things. I'm not even going to sit down and try to like write out how I can make $10 more. Experimenting, just doing, just boom, 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 like just getting things done. And they're probably not going to start writing a business plan to talk to investors. They're just going to do the next obvious thing. Right. Maybe if I put the soda in front of people's faces and encourage them to buy a drink, that'll get me more profit. Yeah. Simple. There's
put the chips on like a little one of those hanging
exactly
things.
Like make things more obvious. And I think that's what's so cool about business is that you don't have time to do all this nonsense. Yeah. Like if your business is real and it's working, you're just you're trying things out quick, and so you can think about it in that way. Like, what do you already do? Okay. What do you already like? What is a hell yes? What is a hell no? Let me move towards what I like, move away from things that I don't like. And when you're in that zone, there's no time for all these mystery plans and misaligned things. You're getting information, you're receiving it, and you're acting. That's it,
And that's like the whole idea behind this like 5-foot plan. Yeah. It's that you're just focusing on the here and now, like what's right in front of you. And when you're in that zone, like you kind of narrow your scope to that. Everything is clear. Yes. Everything is accurate.
You can see
it.
You
don't have to make any leaps. You know what I mean? You have a clear idea of what's in front of you and like the problem that is right in front of you, and it puts you in a better position to solve that problem. Like as opposed to like you're trying to preemptively solve a problem that you're going to face in 6 months. Like
there's nothing you can do about it now.
You're not in a position to make a good decision or come up with a good solution for that because it's so far away.
You lack information because in 6 months, you're going to come across something that could make this decision a 5-minute decision or it's not even a decision to make.
Right, because ChatGPT can do it.
Right, which is something you've been talking about, how people in the AI space are like trying to solve these grand problems, and then ChatGPT will come out with something that just completely knocks that out of the park.
Yeah, like a lot of the stuff like clients want to build, I feel like the best advice is just wait 6 months, because it's going to take you 6 months, like a couple dozen, like probably like $50,000 to build this thing. And then in 6 months, you'll be able to build it for a fraction of the cost,
right,
in a much simpler way.
That's the benefit of baby steps, because it, even though it can seem like it's even slower than a 5-year plan, it's actually not, because when you're taking those baby steps and you're doing something simple, you kind of like delay a lot of noise, you know?
Right.
When you're
noise has a tendency to solve itself, you know? So if you just wait, it'll just either not become an issue anymore,
or it becomes really easy to solve.
Right.
Yeah, like when you're following the signal and taking baby steps towards your signals, you almost like wait out a lot of nonsense, and it'll pass before you even realize it. And then you're like, oh, well, this is what I'm doing has become even more clear about what the next step is, and then I don't have to worry about that shit that I didn't even know what to do with anyway. And
this is like a bit, to linger on this a bit more, like this is at all scales, you know what I mean? Like last year, like before starting the data entrepreneurs, like I wouldn't have had the vision to like what the plan is for this quarter. So like we're doing these in-person events, we're going to Austin, we're teaming up with the city of Richardson to do an event. And so it required like kind of, I wouldn't know any of the details of like how to make that happen. Like if I wanted to jump directly to doing a meetup in Austin, you know, like it probably wouldn't turn out the same that it's going to turn out after like, we'll first start the community. Okay. Next, you know, do these like weekly events, post the events on YouTube, be networking and, you know, trying to make connections with other people in the space. And then after doing all that, you're in a much better position. Like I'm in a much better position to make a more productive and valuable event, like the same event, but it's going to just be much more impactful now because of the steps I made beforehand.
And it's kind of like that thing we were talking about, like if you ask somebody who has what you want, they're probably just going to tell you to just get started. It's not this like crazy secret that has like 50 steps to it, or like this really complex things. It's usually the very simple things. So like you had an intuition to like, let me just start, not even just start this community, but let me just reach out to the people I know. Very simple, basic step. Okay, once I reach out to people I know and we get together, let's just start having little events. And then how about I just tell everybody to invite one more person? And it's like very simple steps to like, one day you might have millions of people in this thing. Okay, I don't know, maybe hundreds of thousands.
That would be crazy.
Okay, tens of thousands. I mean, who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, who knows?
The point is you would have a lot more than you do today at this rate. And if somebody were to ask you what you did when you started, like how do you get to, you know, tens of thousands of people in a group, you would just be like, oh, I just started with the very basic step of reaching out to people I know. And then it grew organically. And what's funny is that I was reading this book, Purpose, about like creating a community. And neither of us had read this book before the Data Entrepreneurs started. And it was weird because like everything I was reading that this like author who like literally her job is to create communities and help people create communities. It's on Mighty Networks, if you know what that is. It's like a lot of creators use it to host their communities. Everything she said to do in the book is exactly what he did. Like almost verbatim, maybe like a few other steps.
What were some of the things?
She literally said, start with the people you know.
Okay.
Like, and this is her expert advice after seeing like, I think hundreds or thousands of communities being started. And she gives talks on how to do this. She said, start with the people that you know. Talk to them and understand like what they want out of their like life or the goal or whatever your topic is, and start making that the topics of conversation. I think it was like little things like how to ask a question and all these things. Like you didn't necessarily do that, but you learned that by doing what she said to do, which is stuff you were already doing. And then she was just like, okay, once you have your core group of people, these will be your advocates. So tell them to like invite people that they match their vibe too. And then you create more people. And then after you get these people, then you guys can start like, I forgot the next steps, but a lot of them were like things that you did just intuitively.
Right.
And I thought that was so, that's what I'm saying.
And it was intuitive because like, I feel like once you're in it and the problem is like 2 feet in front of you, it's pretty obvious what the solution should be.
Right.
But you have to go on the journey in order to get into that position.
100%.
And so in other words, you just have to do it.
And I think a good rule of thumb that we talked about is like, if it's too hard for you to figure out, like it's too hazy, you're confused, you're stressing, it's probably too far out. It's too far out. It's too big. That's something I learned a lot when we were dating. It's like anytime that like Shaheen and I'm watching him solve a problem and he just can't, he's just like, well, it's just not the time to solve it right now. And I used to be like, oh my God, like my perfectionist, anxious body was like, no, but we have to solve it right now. Like, but it's a habit that I have to let go of because again, you need, like, if you're going after this dream life, you need focus. You can't be trying to solve everything all at the same time. Baby steps will serve you in so much. This 5-foot plan honestly can be applied to a lot of things. Like if it's not in front of you, it's not something to worry about right now, because if it was in front of you, that means it's important. You know what I mean? I think you don't know everything, but you know enough to get started. So just take the baby steps of what's obvious to you is what you know. So do that, because that will help you get to the things you don't know, if that makes sense. We have like there was a meme that he talked about, like he told me about. We'll put the meme on the screen, but it's really funny because it's kind of like the really dumb person and the really smart person can arrive at the same conclusion. And there's always this guy in the middle who thinks he knows everything. And it's just like, well, no, but it's funny, the person without the knowledge and the person with all the knowledge are coming to the same conclusion, and this person is like trying to be different because they think they know something. They kind of
overcomplicate the problem.
They overcomplicate it. Don't be that person, because you brought up a good example, a lemonade stand. Like when we're kids, we are just like, oh, business is easy. Let's just put out a stand and start selling lemonade. But we don't have that mentality now. Like,
yeah, as you get older, it's like, oh no, I need a business plan. I need investors.
I need a website. I need a this.
Yeah. You have like all these things you have to do before you can start
selling.
The thing. But then like, eventually you just get to the place where it's like, no, you just start the business.
Right. Literally, like put out the stand, put out a sign, have some kind of cash register and get started. And it's like the kid could be making millions while you're over here. I need a website. I need a developer. You don't need all of these things.
And
sometimes
there are people that start in high school, or they just like, they drop out of college. A lot of entrepreneurs, they just dropped out of college and they just did it and they like built great companies. And
everybody, some other person can start, like again, the person with all the knowledge and experience, they can start with all the fancy stuff and still get to the same conclusion or the same goal. But it just, what is easy or obvious to them may not be the thing that's obvious and easy to you. But you both can start with what is obvious and easy and still arrive at a successful spot, So I think the mistake that people try to make when they're jumping ahead is that they're trying to define the vision too much, and they're also trying to define the relationship. They're too early. And I think that's the problem. Like, don't try to skip ahead and be like, oh, well, because I like painting, I'm a painter. Because I like business, I'm an entrepreneur. Like, sure, maybe, okay, but you don't have to define it just yet. Like, be okay with the puttering, the playing,
the exploration.
Like, be okay with that. Like, you're gonna do things and they're gonna fail. You're gonna do things and they're gonna do fine. But don't try to skip the process, because the process is the destination. The journey is the destination. Like, what you're learning there is what you need. Like you said, like if someone takes something away from you, you always have the journey to rely on. You can always remember what you did.
You have that knowledge, you have the skills and experience. Yeah. And so I think that's my biggest issue with the 5-year plan mentality, is that you're trying to define something way too early and you just don't know yet. Just don't know. And the irony is that everything comes in retrospect. It's like when people say like they woke up and realized like, whoa, I have everything I want. I think that is because usually you're so deep in the process and the journey that it takes you, after a minute, realizing you're already there, like for you to be like, oh my God, actually I know everything that I wanted to know. I have everything I wanted to have. And that's a good sign. That means you're doing what you need to be doing. You brought this up about like the arc, like you can only see the arc of the story in retrospect. The narrative, the story is only comes up after you've already done it.
You have to do the thing.
Yeah, you have to do first, and then you can kind of explain it, and that happens just naturally.
Yeah,
you know? And it's also like this idea that I mean, these days I'm rereading a book called Anti-Fragile, and I feel like I'm really influenced by that in my thinking these days. But one thing he says in the book is that theory comes from practice, not the other way around. And I think that's kind of like the delusion that a lot of people have. It's like, oh, I have to learn all the theories so I can start doing the thing. It's like, no, it's actually the exact opposite. You have to do the thing so you can look back and kind of put together the story, put together the narrative. And there was kind of a story from Steve Jobs, and it was kind of similar to this, where he took a calligraphy class in college.
You know?
Right? You know, so he was saying how like life is a series of like dots. I don't remember the exact language he used, but the gist of it was like this: like life is a series of dots, and you can't really see how they are connected together until you kind of get to the end of it. And then you can kind of start connecting all these dots together. And so one example of that is like he took a calligraphy class in college, then later he started Apple, and then later Apple was the first one to have all the different typefaces, like all the different fonts. It was the first computer to do that. And that wouldn't have happened if he didn't take that calligraphy class, which seems so irrelevant and random.
This is why just like follow what you like and do more of it, because you never know when it's going to come up again.
And then that, you know, not only is that authentic and meaningful to you because that's the stuff you're interested in, that is unique to you and gives you a strategic advantage in whatever you're trying to go after.
No, it's I can't say that enough. Just like do what you like. Do you, boo. That's the name of the episode. Do you, boo. Like, even when I started this journey, I didn't think I would be brave enough to quit everything to pursue being a full-time content creator. And it didn't start with, honestly, me leaving my last client in May. It started with me making a post on TikTok. December of 2022, I decided to do Vlogmas on TikTok. That is what started this whole thing of like, because I knew around that time, I mean, I've always loved creating content, but I think in December 2022, I was like, I'm bored. Like, I'm working all the time, I'm making money, yes, but I'm not fulfilled creatively. And so I was like, I'm just going to do Vlogmas. That's it. I don't know the next step. I don't know how this is going to lead to me being a full-time content creator or whatever, because I knew I always wanted to do something with content. I just didn't know how or what. And look at me now, like a year later, I've dropped everything for this. And I would have never been ready to drop everything for it back then. But it was just the one step. Doing Vlogmas was like, oh, posting is not that hard. Oh, I can keep doing this. Oh, I can posting on TikTok encouraged me to start posting more on YouTube. And when I was talking on YouTube, I was like, I like writing too. I want to write blogs. And then that's was like, you know, when we were talking, I was like, why don't we do a podcast? It's like, you know, it just, everything started from that simple action. You just never know what the journey is going to look like. So you just might as well start doing what you like, you know? Okay. So your 5-foot plan, what does it look like? How do you get started today?
Well, I think it's exactly what we've been talking about, which is just do the next obvious step.
Yeah.
You know,
I would say if I were to boil it down to 2 things, think about mentally and physically, like what's 5 feet away from you, like you were saying. And then pick one thing. Just start with one thing, like one aspect. And how do you know what to pick from? I like to think about future self. We already know this. But when I think of future self, it's comprised of 2 things. Like, who am I? What kind of person am I? And how do I feel? Okay. So this could be like, I'm just thinking of something random. For me, I'll use myself an example. For me, when I see my future self, I think of this just like poised but relaxed woman. Okay. She's older. She's wiser. She knows things. She's smart. And she feels happy. She feels excited. She feels like confident. And I can feel that visually when I like close my eyes. And I can pick one aspect of this woman. Does she travel a lot? Does she have businesses? Does she have friends? Like, I can pick one aspect of her life and be like, okay, how can I take the next obvious step towards that? And I know my future self, she runs a business. What's the next obvious step for me to run a business? Come up with an idea. Okay, but coming up with an idea is really hard. Okay, do what I like. What do I like to do? I like to make content. I like to shop. I like to curate things. I like to organize things. I like to visualize things. I like to travel. Those are
like experiences.
So those are things that can give me a clue into making the business that my future self has. But I have to start with one aspect of her. Okay. And that's kind of what I'm doing in my Q1 goals this year, is really like, I need to do things. I had a whole video on like how I'm going to impress myself this year, and really impress myself is equivalent to me being my future self, right? Yeah. Like I'm impressed with her, and I'm going to pick one aspect of her life or several, I mean, depending on what level you're at. But I think for anyone just starting, just pick one. I'm going to pick one aspect, and I'm going to take action on the next obvious thing around me that's in that realm. And one of those for me was like, my future self, she dresses up. Yeah. She's cool. So I'm going to dress up. I'm going to make it a point for myself to dress up every day. That's very obvious. It's clear for me. I have clothes. I have a closet, things like that. Another thing for me was like, she travels with her business and her lifestyle. I'm going to take the time every quarter to book a trip, or like do some long extended stay like this, like going to places like this, make me feel like her, you know? And those are obvious steps that I can do. And she owns businesses. I don't have exactly the clear picture of that, but I do have my skills. I have what's in front of me. How can I use the skills I already have to create a product for people who, are into what I'm into, or who need what I have to give, So
is there something we can expect in Q1?
There is something that we can expect. So this is actually a leap for me, and it came at the end of Q4, which is like, this came at a left field, even though it didn't. Yeah. I've always been saying that I want to start a business and have like physical product and all of these. Actually, no, not even physical. I never said I wanted to make physical products. I just knew I wanted to have.
You wanted a brand.
A brand. I did. Yes. That's something I've always wanted. And I never knew what it would be, but it kind of occurred to me after a trip that I took and a conversation that I had with a friend.
A waste of time.
A waste of time trip that was for no one needed or asked for. And a trip to Europe, my favorite place. I just followed my intuition. I was like, I like going there. I'm going to go there.
And I like talking to this friend.
And I like talking to this friend. So I talked to her. And we developed a brand and a meaning that almost like summarized my whole life. But also just sounded so cool that I was like, I have to pursue this. And so next year, I'm going to be starting a brand.
This year?
Oh my God. This year, I'm going to be starting a brand called Sans Raison.
Wow.
And I'm really trying to practice my French R's. And basically, it means no reason or without reason in French. But it's funny because I also want to learn French. And I did not curate this. I asked my friend what no reason means in French. And she said it's pronounced it said sans raison. And I was like, that sounds amazing, first of all. And second, that is the epitome of like what I've been trying to like do in my life and preach for the past however many years. Like I like just doing what I like to do. And that's all I want to get paid to live. And so like, how can I do that? And so that just summarized it for me. And I'm like, this brand is going to be products and inspiration to live a life like that. And so be expecting some merch, be expecting some, it's not even merch, it's just like product, honestly, like physical products, like apparel, and also just like digital products that I help me as a person do that in my life, and then help other people do that. So
wow, exciting.
Yeah. So what about you? What are you doing? What's your baby steps?
Well, the next obvious thing is to just keep going down the path of content. Like to keep learning, keep making content, because it's giving the positive feedback. Because the longer term goal for me is to build a product and build a team around that product.
Yeah.
And like have a business like that. And in order to do that, I need to it's probably going to be a software product. Like it's probably going to be a software business, because that's, adjacent, aligned with my background in data science and machine learning.
Right.
But data science, not to get too far into the weeds here, but like that's just one slice of a larger technology stack. And if you want to build a product, there's much more that happens around what I've done in the past to make that happen. And so I'm kind of calling it becoming a full stack data scientist, which means like learning the full technology stack. So it's not just you're building machine learning models or building AIs, but you're building like end-to-end software systems that can actually provide value, you know what I mean? Like a product. And so that's a focus for me. And so using content to develop that skill set, doing one end-to-end project, whether that's like for me personally or doing it for a client, like that's a goal for me in Q1.
Yeah.
And that's like the next obvious step. Because I have the time, I have the flexibility, I have the opportunity. I just need to learn these skills because they're going to be necessary for me in the next chapter of actually building this product.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I feel like this is an example of where we're at with our baby steps, but yours could be completely different and very, very simplified. Like it doesn't have to be anything grand. I mean, for me to get to a baby step of putting together a product had several other baby steps before that. And so like for me, even a year ago, a baby step was just posting one video or posting one TikTok. Like I'll talk about like a 30-second TikTok, you know, like the baby steps can be and there's areas of my life and my goals where it's very tiny. Like for me, like with working out, just going once a week or going twice a week to the gym for 30 minutes. Like it's very small, and your baby steps can look like whatever. It just depends on where you're at and how much knowledge you have in that thing. And so that leads me to our homework. So hopefully it's very clear by now what the homework is, but take the next obvious step. And if you don't have an idea of where your obvious step should be in, like what category, think about what you want out of life. Who is the person that you want to be? What do they do? What are they like? How do they feel? Pick aspects of that person and take the next step. And it could even be like, if it's not that deep, it could be like, what have I been enjoying lately? What has been a hell yes for me lately? How can I do that one step more? Just one step. Like that could just mean continuing it, like doing it again or doing it several times a week, whatever that is. Like just take one step and pick one thing. Just pick one thing, take one step. You don't know how far that could take you or what that could lead to, honestly.
Well, I mean, that's, you know, just like the old saying, like, how do you eat an elephant? It's one bite at a time. So like, heard that. Oh, you haven't? It's like a popular saying. Progress happens iteratively. You know, innovation happens iteratively. Yeah. So it's just one step at a time, like baby steps every single day. So it's like, I don't know, there's like a book, 1% better, 2%
Yeah,
better,
the 1% better.
Yeah, so it's like, the thing is, like, even if you're doing incremental improvement every single day, this thing builds on top of itself.
It's compounding.
And it compounds and it leads to exponential growth. So a very small change can lead to huge impact over a long enough period of time. Yeah. And this is like your whole life. You know? So like, you know, get rich quick schemes, it's just like usually a waste of time. It's a distraction. It's like just focus on the, you know, the long game, like figuring out what you really want and then just devoting more and more of your time and attention to making that thing happen.
Right. And it's like your 5-year plan it's convincing because it seems like I'm going to be spending a long time working at my goals and everything. But I feel like the irony is like, I feel like that could be a noise instead of the signal, because it's getting you to like, it's not necessarily what you care about and it's not necessarily effective. So, and it also lacks tons of information. So I don't think there's anything more accurate and clear than doing what's right in front of you and what you've known to already like and what you physically, presently, right now, you enjoy. So I think if you spend more time doing that, like imagine what 5 years of that could look like versus 5 years that you mapped out 5 years ago. That doesn't make any sense. You know what I mean? Like, so just, you never know where that could, like these silly little things could get you and how much progress you can make. Like, imagine that thing now being accurate and effective. Where is that going to get you in 5 years? Like, that's what I'm interested in. Boom. So thank you guys so much for spending another 5 million hours with us, and make sure you check out our old videos. I think a lot of our topics kind of also connect with each other.
Yeah.
And
I feel like we like rehash things, like reinterpret.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting. Yeah.
It is interesting. And this is, again, is not necessarily by design. So, you know, it's just like, we're just doing what we like. This is why we started the podcast. So check out the old episodes. Stay tuned for more episodes and for more season 2
and more
action
guests.
And more guests. And yeah, thank you so much. And we'll see you next time.
Wow.
Bye.